Hello, everyone. So we're live with the one and only Ethan, part of the who runs the YouTube channel Electrons in Love. So if you know any electrons who are looking for a date, they should check out his channel. All right. So we're going to be responding to Trent Horn's opening statement in his debate with Ben Watkins. So let's go, or let's share the screen. Okay. And it's shared.
October 25th through 29th.
I need to look at this. I'm sick log.
Oh, it's also worth noting, I haven't actually watched the full debate, so if I make objections that Ben goes on to raise, don't fault me if you already watched the debate and then you're mad at me for lacking originality.
I actually will fault you for lacking originality if you do that. So sorry.
It upsets me that you would do that, Matthew.
Well, okay. I'm sorry that you're upset.
I'm going to do 30 minutes of Q&A. We're going to set up microphones here and here. I'll let you know where to go.
More than water could just freeze it. No scientific fact proved.
Log. I'll try to keep my talking again.
Gosh, we don't want to hear you.
Closings. So that's going to be the format of the debate.
Cam.
Horn.
I want to hear Cam. I feel like I haven't heard enough of Cam in my life.
Question, and then 5-minute closings. So that's going to be the format of the debate, and we're debating the topic, does God exist? In the affirmative is Trent Horn. Let's go ahead and just have you come on up here.
I think it's funny how they're both in suits and he's just in a tie-dye t-shirt.
Get our microphone. Okay, can you hear me now? All right. Before we get started, yes, Cameron, I'm sorry that you have a cough. I still have shingles in my left eye. Ben, if you want to disclose your medical history.
He decided to start off by explaining the problem of evil.
Your opening. Let's see.
Here, wait, should we play it at 2 times speed or?
Do 1.5.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, but apparently Ethan just can't handle double speed Aristotelian metaphysics, so we gotta slow down for Ethan.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cameron, and thank you so much for being here as well. We can all agree, at least, it's nice to finally do this kind of stuff in person. So let me start by saying that God is not a being in the universe. What I'm arguing for tonight, I'm arguing for that God just is unlimited being itself. God is not something that we locate with scientific tools, because God is not composed of matter and energy. Neither is God located within time and space. That doesn't mean the game's over, though, because philosophers know lots of things could exist or do exist beyond the reach of science. This includes minds, numbers, propositions, free will, and objective moral truth.
Well, philosophers don't know that minds are beyond the reach of science. That's very contested claim in philosophy of mind.
Well, yeah, also, and with morality also, he says it most moral realists accept that not everything is reducible to scientifically observable natural processes, and he cites morality, but first of all, the extent to which moral realism is actually a consensus position is iffy. But secondly, even
what? It's 68%.
Yeah, but even then, right? Well, firstly, a lot of I imagine a lot of philosophers will answer other, because they have positions like quasi-realism, and then even then, a large amount of
But moral realism was still the large majority. So
yeah, sure, but
including other as an option.
Sure, but even then, right? A good amount of moral realists are theists who think moral realism is only true conditional on theism being true.
Two points. So one is that would still be thinking moral realism. It would just be thinking that holding a false view about moral metaphysics. But also the percentage that are theists is only, I think, 21%. So
It's
I
a pretty large percentage, right?
well, right, but the percentage that are theists who think you can only have reality if you have God, I think would be even smaller.
Maybe marginally, but I think that's a pretty standard theist position. I mean, that's one of the arguments for theism, is that you can only have objective morality if you have God, and because we have objective morality, therefore, we have God. But I mean, like, yeah, I'm just saying, like, I mean, 60, it's something like 60%, and then if you like subtracted the people, because I take it that like the point Trent is trying to make is that it shouldn't be controversial for me as a theist to present some sort of unscientifically observable property, because non-theist philosophers present all kinds of non-scientifically observable properties, right? But the thing is, right, like if he's going to point to moral realism as a consensus position, one of the major reasons moral realism appears to be such a consensus is because of people who agree with him, who are theists and who think that moral realism is true because theism is true. So that just seems like not like a very good
Sure.
argument
I mean,
for his claim.
I mean, I think moral realism is still the significant majority, even among atheists. But yeah, I mean,
but beyond that, right? Like, even beyond that, right? Like, if his point is just like, if we subtract atheists, I haven't run. I don't know what the numbers would be if we subtracted like theists, and then if we also included quasi-realists as like anti-realists, because I think that would be fair. Like I don't know how the numbers would work out, but like even as like granting your point, right? If his point is just all kinds of philosophers believe in things that aren't like reducible to scientifically observable process, pointing to moral realism isn't even going to be a good example, because most moral realists are moral naturalists, right? So they think that morality, while being objective, is reducible to scientifically observable natural processes.
I don't know if most moral realists are moral naturalists, but it certainly is significant.
That's the most popular position, right?
Well, naturalism is more popular than non-naturalism, but probably moral realism is less popular among naturalists. And so I think that among naturalists, moral realism, like I think that most, well, I don't know, but I think that it would be about half and half of the moral realists who are non-naturalists. But I don't know. But I mean, I agree that his point is like here are a bunch of controversial views that I'm staking out a position on to like serve as background information that I'm using to bolster my position to show that it's like reasonable.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, so I think Leophilius is just wrong. I think there are great arguments for moral realism.
Oh no, they don't.
Of the humor variety. I don't know. This is like a huge derail. Like this is not this sort of a side point. So should we continue the video, or do we want to?
Yeah, I'll let you know. Like, I'm pretty confident that naturalism is more popular than non-naturalism. But
no, even naturalism is definitely more
popular. No, moral naturalism is more popular than moral non. I think that's the case. I would have to look into it. But like either way, the point stands, which is that like the majority of philosophers aren't moral non-naturalists, right? So like. And that would need to be the case in order for his sort of appeal to go through, it seems, right? But but the point is just like, none of the positions that he just like brought up as philosophers recognize are like uncontroversial.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and Leophilius. Well, I think that there are good arguments. So like the argument. So if we accept phenomenal conservatism, which I think we have reason to accept, then it seems like that gives us good reason for thinking that realism is true because of the vast number of unintuitive results. But yeah. All right, let's continue.
In fact, I listened to an interview that Ben did recently where he defends the existence of objective moral truths or moral realism. And I felt a common bond in hearing him make this case. For example, the philosopher Dan Barris says that moral realism is no better than theism because neither can be proven scientifically. The atheistic philosopher...
Wait, that does not establish that, right? Like the fact that neither of them are observable scientifically. Well, I mean, firstly, again, like a good number of moral realists are non-naturalists, so they think that moral properties are reducible to things which are scientifically observable. But secondly, even if even if we granted the existence of objective morality and the existence of moral and the truth of moral non-naturalism, right? And we said that neither non-natural moral entities nor God are observable scientifically, that doesn't mean that they're like equally well off, right? The fact that neither of them are observable scientifically doesn't mean that the arguments for one aren't significantly more powerful than the arguments for the other.
Right. I mean, there's no scientific evidence that cold fusion works. And so, like, our credence in cold fusion should be much, much lower than our credence in theism. Well, maybe not, because theism is so insane, but certainly than our credence in some reasonable position, like moral realism. But yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that I mean, he does the Craig thing of like cherry picking quotes from philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Arisen in the ordinary course of events without an all-powerful God to create them. So I feel for Ben.
Yeah, like citing J.L. Mackie, saying it's unlikely that objective morality would have arisen without an all-powerful God, while not like explicitly mentioning the fact that J.L. Mackie's argument was that moral facts did not arise and that there is not an all-powerful God, right? Which is relevant because if his point is supposed to be like, or if he goes on to make the point, which he does in this opening statement, I think that's like I'm pretty sure he does in this opening statement. If he goes on to make the claim that like, well, of course we have to accept God because without God there could be no objective morality, and clearly there must be objective morality. But clearly we don't have to accept that, right? At best, that would just give us reason to say if the arguments for God aren't powerful, we should assume there isn't objective morality.
Yeah, we don't all have to adopt the theory that was admitted by its founder to be a theory full of errors. He called it error theory because it had so many errors.
True.
Moral realism.
Actually, the last point that I just made wasn't great. Okay, I retract that a little bit because I feel like he would say like, never mind. It doesn't matter. But I think there's a plausible response to what I just said.
Okay, so you retract it.
I've retracted.
Okay, so you retract it publicly in front of everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
You admit that you were lying.
Caught with my folded like a chair. Caught with my pants down.
Wait. Okay. Someone was talking about the stream volume. How do we turn it up? Okay. Wait. I just muted it. That does not seem to increase the volume. Whatever.
Fact proves theism. Instead, you have to guide people's intuitions towards the only conclusion that makes sense of the world around us. So let me offer some observations of the world around us based on our strongest intuitions and show you how they point towards God as the ultimate cause of the world.
I have very strong intuitions about act becoming potentiality, resulting in pure actuality, which necessitates no limits because change is really the actualization of potential. I have incredibly strong intuitions about that. Look, when they tell me that change is not the actualization of potential in a way that entails a being that's pure actuality, I just employ a Moorian shift. I just say, yeah, your argument must be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should be doing like some experimental, because like, they do it in the case of moral realism, where if they're trying to assess like lay people's intuitions, they'll just do experiments where they like give people scenarios and ask them to answer, and then like categorize people's responses as realist or anti-realist. I feel like we should just do an experiment where we go out and list off like the 14 premises in an Aristotelian proof, and then like ask people whether they found the argument intuitive or not.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm curious what the results would be.
Yeah. lay people are ardent defenders
First, I'll offer
of.
what has been called argument from motion or change. It goes like this: 1, change exists.
What?
2, change involves the actualization of a potential.
Okay, let's think about what that means. So change involves things going from what they can be to from a thing that they formerly could be to what they are. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
This could be intrinsic change like growth or extrinsic change like movement. But whatever it is, change is the result of a thing's potential being actualized, such as liquid water's potential to be solid when it's actualized by cold air. 3, no potential can actualize itself. 4.
Whoa. Well, this is just question begging against the Humean view about laws of nature, right? Like that says that what we call laws of nature are really law-like generalizations where things have intrinsic powers where they act in particular ways. And then what we call laws are really just describing their interaction. And so, and this doesn't seem intuitive at all. Like, why can't a thing cause itself to change? Especially when change includes movement. Like, why can't a thing cause itself to move?
What's the claim he's making?
He said that a thing can't actualize its own potential.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like what he's just getting at the old claim that like a potential can't be actualized unless some other already actual thing actualizes the potential. But I mean, that just doesn't seem true, right? Like, so let's say this is like an example that Graham Oppie gives, but like, let's say like at noon, right? At exactly noon, like the second it hits noon, there was in fact a black chair in my room, right? The one that I'm sitting on right now. And we could say that at noon, there was a potential for my chair to exist and to continue being black 2 seconds after noon, right? And, you know, it just so happened that 2 seconds after noon, my chair did still exist and it was still black, right? And so, like, the question is, do we need to postulate the existence of a distinct thing that actualized my chair's potential to keep existing 2 seconds after noon in order to explain why my chair existed 2 seconds after noon? And it seems like the answer is no, right? Because, like, given that at noon, the chair has the potential to exist and to be black 2 seconds after noon, all that is required for the actualization of this potential is that nothing else intervenes to stop my chair from existing 2 seconds after noon, or to stop my chair from being black 2 seconds after noon. So the general idea is just that, like, potentials to remain unchanged do not require distinct actualizers. All they require is like the absence of something preventing the actualization of those potentials. And
Yeah.
you know, yeah. And if we grant that, right, that means that there are cases where potentials to change do not require distinct actualizers. So, like, for example, if the rate of expansion of the universe is some constant value r, we can suppose that at some specified point in time, the universe has the potential to be expanding at rate r at some time after that initial specified point. And all that is required for the realization of this potential is that nothing intervenes to bring about that the rate of expansion of the universe changes. But, you know,
Right.
suppose, yeah, sorry.
And it seems like the starting things can be a complex system that, like, interacts with itself. So while maybe like a single atom won't do anything absent other atoms, like the Earth doesn't require any non-Earth thing to actualize its potential, right? The Earth contains things that actualize each other's potentials. And so the first thing could be a complex system with many interacting parts.
Hmm.
All right, let's... and it seems like... So... and, okay. The Aristotelians are slippery with their language and their metaphysics, so it's important to keep in mind the terms. So what we've gotten so far, according to the argument, is that if a thing goes from what it can be to like stops. If there's something that a thing can be, and then it becomes that thing, that requires an external thing. That's what it means to actualize a potential. And so, note, this does not have any implications for it, like being logically impossible for it to stop existing or anything, as is suggested later.
Or
So-
any change is caused.
Yeah.
by-
Wait. Also, really quickly, just to to put a little bow on the point, right? I mean, so if we if we agree, which I think like we probably should, right? Like, I mean, if the arguments are just intuition, it seems intuitive that, you know, nothing like my chair continuing to be black 2 seconds from now doesn't require some independent thing actualizing its potential to continue being black. It just requires the absence of something stopping it from continuing to be black. But if we accept that, right, and we like think of like the rate of the universe or the rate of expansion of the universe example that I gave, right? All that needs to happen in order for the universe to continue expanding at the same rate is that nothing else, no external thing stops it from continuing, right? But like this has implications for the Aristotelian argument because like consider the volume of the universe, right? Like clearly given that the rate of expansion of the universe remains constant through different time periods, the volume of the universe grows during this time period, right? And at the first point in time, the universe has the potential to have a larger volume at some point in the future than it currently does. But even though this is a real change that's happening in the universe, it doesn't require any distinct thing to actualize this change. It's enough that there is nothing that intervenes to bring it about that the rate of expansion of the universe changes. And so it just seems false that we need to postulate some sort of, external entity to actualize potential in order for things to change. It seems like there are clear counterexamples to that.
Yeah, I agree. So far, he said that these were all just going to be very intuitive points. But I think that if you approach the average man on the street and ask, do you think that change requires actualization of potential? They would say, what? I mean, I don't think that this is intuitive at all.
Well, I think that what Trent would want to claim is that it wouldn't be intuitive because most people don't, know these sort of academic type terms. But once they know what it means, it does seem highly intuitive. But I mean, then the response is like, okay, well, then when you think about it like a little bit more, it stops being intuitive again, right? Like, so there's like one subsection of person who might find it intuitive, and that person is in some sort of limbo state between being a lay person and like actually having thought about the issue in depth.
Yeah, Trent
Or at least
just
that's my
goes to,
sense.
those highbrow academics deny it, but the construction workers on the streets,
Exactly.
they realize the change is actualization of potential.
Intellectual populism.
Actualize itself. 4, any change is caused
Yeah, change is actualization of potential. Oh.
by something actual. The point here is that no potential X can become an actual Y on its own any more than water could just freeze itself, or a train car.
Well, okay, but the universe can grow itself without needing
Right.
any action. Okay.
I mean, he's just like it's true that like in the example he gave, there must be something else to all that shows is that like sometimes a change requires some external thing to actualize a potential. But I don't think that from that example we can like generalize, right? So like even then, like it may be true that when there's change, there is a transfer of, there's some actualization of potential or something like that, or there's some transfer of conserved quantities. But when there is no change, the point is like this just doesn't like there's just no reason to think that like this one example like generalizes, right? Because there are clear counterexamples on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that this is true.
Freezer or locomotive must actualize the potential for change in these objects. 5, anything that is changing has its potential for existence actualized by something else. And 6,
Well, that would follow from the earlier premise, I think, but I think the earlier premise is false.
Wait, what was the last premise?
That anything that changes has an actualization of its potential from something else.
Okay.
There can't be an infinite chain of actualizers. So the impossibility of such an infinite series is explained by the philosopher Garrigou-Lagrange, who once wrote, "To do away with a supreme cause is to claim that, as someone has said, a brush will paint by itself, provided it has a very long handle." In his discussion of
Okay, nice analogy, but that's not an argument.
St. Thomas Aquinas, and this argument is based on, the atheist J.H. Sobel writes, "I am persuaded by it
Yay, Sobel. Whew. My guy. I like Sobel.
that sustaining causes could not go on to infinity." What this means
Okay, well, I don't know if I agree with Sobel on that. But...
is that causes which are concurrent with each other cannot be infinite, because if there were, there'd be no cause at all. This series of causes would be like an infinitely long train of boxcars without a locomotive. Such a train, even infinitely long, would have no motion to it, unless you added a car that gives motion to the train without receiving motion from anything else. 7.
Okay, I mean, the analogy is not a general argument against an infinite regress of changing things.
And therefore, there must be a first actualizer. 8, this first actualizer could not have any potential, and so it must be an unactualized actualizer, or that which is pure act.
Okay, wait. So this just means that it has to not change. Well, at the very least, not change prior to existence, because after it creates, after it changes things, there's no contradiction with it changing things and then those things changing it. So this just shows that if we accept the premises, which we shouldn't accept, that there was a first thing that changes things, but prior to changing things was not changed by other things. But like, okay, why does that have to be God? Well, he'll argue that it does. I think his arguments don't.
I wish he had like the premises up.
Yeah,
Like, I can't-
I agree. No, I mean he did it like in the cosmic skeptic debate. He asked like 9 questions, where he was like, first, is the universe contingent? No, and then he had like 5 reasons for each of them, and then there were like 45 arguments, and it was
Way in with the
it was
Gestalt.
just chill.
Do you have like? Can you scroll to like where he put up the like? It showed them briefly. I'm just trying to like see if there's anything I missed.
I mean, I could, but let's just go premise by premise as he's laying them out.
Okay. I think I might have missed some, but okay, yeah, we can do that.
So the premises so far have, I think, been change exists, change is the actualization potential. The actualization potential can't go on infinitely, therefore there has to be some unactualized actualizer or something that's pure act. And so I would reject that it has to be pure act. I would reject the starting thing. But this also just shows that it has to be purely actual prior to the moment of changing other things, not after that.
Progress of concurrent causes is impossible. The first cause must not rely on anything else to actualize its own potential to exist.
John, I don't know. I think Trent Horn's pretty smart.
In that respect, it must be pure existence or pure actuality itself.
Wait, okay, those are different things. Like pure actuality. Okay, so pure actuality. So prior, up until this point, all he was saying was that it has to change things and can't be changed. Well, he didn't establish that it can't be changed. He just established that it can't be changed prior to changing other things. And now he's saying that this means that it has to be pure act, which I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
pure
I'm just not...
changingness. Like what does that mean? I mean, that just seems like a vague pseudo term in order to muddy the water, so he can equivocate with other things. And then, as if to prove that, he then says, "or pure existence." Well, what does that mean? Like to be pure existence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how any of this follows.
Yeah,
like I feel like I'm missing something in his argument. Like it's just I don't know. It's not connecting.
Look, I mean, it's very easy to pull one over on people when you start talking about actualization potential.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, we can try to get up to, wait, okay. Here, wait. Let's go back. Oh, I forgot. I lost the timestamp. Oops, but whatever. Okay. Okay, here's the moral facts stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where he talked about how J.L. Mackey
J.L. Mackey proved God.
no.
Oh no.
Okay, but we were at, okay. This is strong evidence against theism.
I think it's evidence for theism. God doesn't want people being led away.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
Hey, it's a miracle.
Welcome to the Capturing Christianity CCV1 debate on God's existence. And you can hear my voice is kind of going. I've got some cough drops. I'm gonna have cough drops like a whole night.
His voice's potential is being actualized.
Moral realism, just like no scientific fact, proves theism. Instead, you have to guide people's intuitions to by something actual. The point here is that no potential X can become an actual Y on its own any more than Y.
Okay. No, it's so hard
it's
to
so
read.
blurry. Change exists.
2, change involves the actualization of potential. So that's 3. No potential can actualize itself. False. So 4. Any change is caused by something actual. Wait, okay. Any change is caused by something actual. Probably. Okay.
Yeah, I
5.
think I addressed the conjunction of the third and fourth premises.
Yeah. Anything that is changing has its potential for existence actualized by something else. So that's false. 6, there cannot be an infinite chain of actualizers. 7, there must be a first actualizer. 8, this first actualizer could not have any potential, and so it must be an unactualized actualizer or that which is pure act. 9, if something is pure act, it would be God. Therefore, God exists. No, I mean, the argument just doesn't follow. Like, we're not missing anything.
Wait, why would premise 8 be true? Like, why would it have to be pure act?
Well, because it has no potential, so it has to be pure act.
Yeah, wait, I'm just not seeing it.
What? Yeah, why? Wait, yeah, no, why can't it? So, why can't it be? So, like, why can't it actualize the potentials of other things and also have potential? What's the what's the argument for why it can't? John, the Anabaptist, you're not the only one who thinks it sounds like gibberish. We're all deeply confused by Aristotelian metaphysics until we break it down simply.
Back to my construction men. Imagine that as the rooms in Hilbert's hotel were constructed.
Oh, wait, okay. Whoops.
But unlike concrete objects, abstract objects like numbers and shapes don't have causal power. Infinite regress of concurrent causes is impossible. The first cause must not rely on anything else to actualize its own potential to exist. In that respect, it must be pure existence or pure actuality itself.
Wait, okay. The first thing can't rely on other things, so it must be pure actuality or pure existence. What? It doesn't rely on other things to exist. Why does that mean that it can't have any potentials? Why does that mean that it can't be made to be different by anything? What?
Yeah, that doesn't seem intuitive to you.
Yeah, no.
Well, its cause does not have any other potentialities, because like everything else we observe, what the cause does follows from what it is. And what it is at its most basic level is existence or actuality itself.
No, none of this follows. Wait, what does it mean that at its most basic level, it is existence or actuality itself? Those are, those are different things. It's like saying what it is at its most basic level is changing and banana slugs. Like they're just completely different. Existence and actuality. I mean, they're similar, but actuality is like juxtaposed with potentiality, and existence is just the things that are. and like excludes future things that will be. But also, being pure existence. Wait, let's rewind. What?
Does follows from what. Moreover, this cause could not have any other potentialities because, like every.
Wait, okay. It can't have any other potentiality, so it can't be different. Nothing can make it different, including itself.
Everything else we observe, what the cause does follows from what it is.
Because what it does follows from what it is. Okay.
And what it is at its most basic level is existence or actuality itself. To say that.
What? What does this mean? What it is existence, so it can't change? What?
I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just don't understand.
Look, I mean, when God visits us on the Holy Judgment, he'll say, why didn't you realize that what I do follows from what I am, like everything else, and being pure actuality, that means that I can't not exist or change. So
this first actualizer has perfect existence, but another part of it would only exist.
wait, what's...
It has perfect existence.
It exists so much that it's perfect.
I have the best existence. My existence is so perfect you wouldn't believe it.
You look at what we're doing with the existence, with many other things. We have the best existence. They say we actualize the potentials more than anybody. You look at the potentials, they were actualized so good, so many of them.
True.
And what it is at its most basic level is existence or actuality itself. To say this first
Wait, we maybe skipped a bit. Also, my brain's just now in recovery mode from taking in so many high-level ideas to quote David.
Or change, it goes like this. 1, change exists. 2, change involves the actualization of a potential. This could be intrinsic to of actualizers.
I like how so far this stream has been like 2 minutes of us responding to Trent and then like a bunch of minutes of us having technical difficulties and then failing to understand what he's getting at.
Look, I mean, this is what happens. This is what happens when you're an Aristotelian.
It's not my fault that you're speaking gibberish, right?
Look, I mean, he may as well be speaking French.
There'd be no cause at all. This series of causes would be like an.
I think. Well, wait. Did Aristotle write things? I don't know. It was like Plato who wrote things. But whoever wrote things about Aristotle's arguments in Greek, like the easiest part of it to understand was the fact that it was in Greek. That what
I'm
he
like
was saying
99.
was the harder part.
Aristotle definitely wrote things.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure he didn't.
I'm like 99% sure.
Okay, anyone want to Google this?
I'll Google it.
Okay.
Infinitely long train of boxcars without a locomotive. Such a train, even infinitely long, would have no motion to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a book on Amazon called The Complete Works of Aristotle, right? So I imagine that means he wrote things.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a blank book.
Yeah, that's plausible.
Look, I mean,
that would be.
I think Cameron will just conclude this with like, wow, that was a lot to take in. So really, it's about actualization of potential. Man, I bet the audience is just eating this stuff up. By the way, changes actualization of potential. Pure actuality.
Imagine trying to fit that on like a mug. No, but I mean, this stream. I mean, if one positive thing has come of listening to Trent Horn's rambling, I had an idea, right? Which is that we could sell a book called The Complete Works of Socrates. And it's just like, we can sell it on Amazon for like $30. And then people who like don't know much about philosophy and are trying to get into it will buy it. but then it'll just be like a piece of paper that says the complete works of Socrates with nothing in it, because Socrates never wrote anything.
We should do that.
It's a great opportunity, I think.
I don't like Michael Knowles' political views very much, but he wrote a book called like All the Reasons to Vote for Democrats, and it was a blank book.
That's funny.
To the train without receiving motion from anything else. 7, therefore, there must be a first actualizer. 8, this first actualizer could not have any potential, and so it must be an unactualized actualizer, or that which is pure act. Since an infinite regress of concurrent causes is impossible, the first cause must not rely on anything else to actualize its own potential to exist. In that respect...
Wait. Potential to exist? Why is existing like if it exists eternally, then what? What?
Can you rewind like 15 seconds? I'm so lost.
We're like 2 minutes in the Aristotelian.
Which is pure act. Since
Oh, it's pure act, guys.
Oh, okay. I get it now.
Causes is impossible. The first cause must not rely on anything else to actualize its own potential to exist. In that respect, it must be pure existence or pure actuality itself.
What? Why? Like, wait, so what? Like, well, I would accept root necessity, but if you think it's contingent, why can't it just be contingent and eternal?
Yeah, but I mean, this doesn't even like I mean, we've already established. Well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I shouldn't fault him by saying we've already established, because obviously he probably wouldn't accept our arguments. But I mean, if the problem is if we agree with the earlier arguments that we've made, that there is no reason to say that potential can only be actualized unless some already actual thing actualizes it. If we just say that my chair's existence 3 seconds after noon is fully explained by the actualization of the potential possessed by the chair at noon to continue to existing, and the absence of anything that intervenes to prevent the realization of that potential, then there's just no reason for us to accept this premise that that God would need to be pure actual, or that the first actualizer would need to be pure existence in order for in order to avoid an infinite causal chain of actualizers.
Right. I mean, it seems like it can just change and or create things from a simple thing. But yeah.
Moreover, this cause could not have any other potentialities, because everything else we observe, what cause does follows from what it is. And what it is at its most basic level is existence or actuality itself. To say this first actual...
What? We talked at that bizarre claim.
Actualizer has perfect existence, but another part of it doesn't exist. Or it only exists potentially.
Look, I mean, the major vibe that I get from the Old Testament is that when God is smiting people and commanding horrible atrocities, that he seems like the type of dude who has no potentiality. It was just pure act. That's the main message I get from the Old Testament. In the famous loaves and the fishes, Jesus just, with his pure actuality, he just brought forth the loaves and the fishes.
9, if something is pure act, it would be God. 10, therefore, God exists. All right, so why should we believe something with pure act has the classical divine attributes? For example, we know if it's pure act, there could only be one purely actual actualizer. If there was more than one, in order to distinguish them, each actualizer would lack something the other had.
Okay, but lacking something that the other had isn't potentiality if they can't become that other thing, right? A triangle is not a square, but triangles, That doesn't mean that like a perfect triangle is like lacking something to be a perfect triangle. Right. It also seems like, these just like if we accept neo-Humeanism about laws of nature and just the fundamental thing that like changes other things and is unchanged can just be basic laws of nature. Right? I don't see the problem with that.
But this would cause each of them to have potentials, which they can't have if they're purely.
Do squares have potentials? Like just like the Platonic ideal of a square, assuming one is a Platonist, which I don't know.
Actual. Also, if there was more than one purely actual being, they would have to exist in a common framework that's more fundamental than either of them, and so neither could be pure actuality.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? No, why does being within a common framework mean that they like? Remember, pure actuality just means that it, there's nothing that it isn't that it can be.
Yeah, I mean,
but like
he's
laws of physics. No, I mean, like it just feels like. I mean, it just feels like he could just say anything here with like Aristotelian gobbledygook. It would sound equally compelling. Like, of course, it can't not like hot chocolate because that would be a potential, and a purely actual being would have no potentials. Like, I don't know. It's just operating at such a bizarre and high level of abstraction that it's really hard to be very confident about any of these claims. But the more fundamental, like, are triangles, do they like have potentiality because they're not the most fundamental thing? I mean, this is just a bizarre claim.
In addition, change only happens when potential is reduced to actual. But this final cause is just pure actuality. So as a result, it can't change.
Why can't it change prior to changing other things? Right? If we accept that there was just one thing, and then it changes, and then it causes/changes other things, then okay, that thing can't change itself if we accept his false claim that things can't actualize their own potentials. Okay, but like, then why is that true after it creates things? And why can't there be multiple things that are fundamental that, like, why can't there be multiple laws of physics which create things and interact with each other? That seems to meet this, and they have no potentiality. Like the law of gravity can't be any different.
Is how we measure change. It follows the cause cannot be subject to time, so it must be timeless. We also know that matter is.
Wait, okay, it must be timeless. Wait, why?
I'm just like lost on this argument. I don't even know what he's saying.
Time is how we measure change, so it must be timeless. Okay, it must be timeless prior to creating things, sure. Okay, I grant. So if we accept his other false assumptions, then I guess that's true.
It's always changing, at least on the atomic and subatomic levels. And so this cause can't be composed of matter.
No, of course it can. This just shows that it can't be composed of matter and temporal of the type that other matter is that's constantly changed. This does not show that it can't be some special type of matter that doesn't change, or like quantum fields.
The cause must also be unlimited because a limit would entail a potential which the thing in question could never actualize.
No, a limit doesn't entail a potential. If something cannot be any different, I mean, like, a triangle is not unlimited, but a triangle doesn't have any potentiality. There's nothing that it can be that it isn't. The same thing can just be true of laws of nature. Also, being unlimited, well, it just results in like these weird things. Like, one can't be unlimited in all respects. If one has unlimited power, they can't also have unlimited impotence. If one has infinite knowledge, they can't have unlimited ignorance. And presumably God is not unlimited in all domains. So presumably God is not unlimited in how much he desires to have sex with animals. But so presumably there's a limit. In fact, a very firm limit. God presumably does not want to have any sex with animals. But that's a limit.
Right.
That means the cause is causal power.
I mean, right, like, presumably, right, like, theists would want to say it's not possible for God to, like, do evil, right? I mean, that kind of seems like a limit.
Well, but why isn't doing good a limit? What's the symmetry breaker?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Well, so he's saying, so he gets to the arguments about God being good from God being unlimited. But if God's unlimited, why can't he be unlimitedly malevolent? And why can't God be unlimited in terms of how many people's wives or husbands he sleeps with?
And I mean, doesn't being
no, I mean it's a limit, right? If it's
Right.
only a finite number, so it has to be an infinite number of people who he has sex with, who are married.
But doesn't doesn't being infinitely good place limits on your ability to be bad?
But being infinitely bad places limits on ability to be good. So
yeah, that's the point, right? Like, so
well, no, I mean, so there has to be, so to the extent that the argument for him being perfectly good is that he is his goodness is unlimited. Well, why would his goodness rather than his badness be unlimited?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, it's like the argument, it's not clear why the argument has to do with goodness. The argument just has to do with a lack of limits. But if you say like he's unlimitedly good, then like, I mean, that like, why does that follow from him being unlimited, right? It seems like him being unlimitedly good means the extent to which he's bad is severely limited.
Right. And if anything, then goodness and he would just be amoral, because both goodness and badness place lots of limits on him, such as how many people he can have affairs with. It plays massive limits.
Really set on this, really set on this line of argument, I see.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, does God have an unlimited desire for pizza? Does God have an unlimited desire for small children to like? I mean, like there's so many. There are infinite things for which being unlimited in them is not a thing that we think God would have. Like, is God an infinite temperature? Is God infinitely bad at trivia? Is he infinitely good at trivia? Is he infinitely tall? Does he have an infinite knowledge of super, like, is he infinitely good, like effective at like drawing Superman comics? I don't know. I mean, it just,
yeah, I mean, and this might be like a level 0 argument, because I've never like read the literature on this like subject, so this might just be like retarded and like people will tell me why, but like, I mean,
perhaps even infinitely so.
Is the concept of being limitless like even coherent, right? Because it seems like if you're unlimitedly tall, right, then clearly there's a severe limit on your ability to be short. If you're unlimitedly hot, then there's a severe limit on your ability to be cold, right? Like, for any property that you could have to an infinite degree, you having that property to an infinite degree limits your ability to have like the converse property or the opposite property. So like, I mean, I guess more would need to be said, but just like the appeal to like limitless, I mean, that just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah.
Unless you can give some reason why being unlimited more naturally lends itself to an interpretation of unlimited in this respect, as opposed to unlimited in the opposite respect.
Yeah. God, for those who play Magic the Gathering, only they will get this joke. God's the type of person to play a Battle of Wits deck, because his deck just has to be unlimited in size. So
I used to play Magic the Gathering.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you should play online.
I have played online.
You'll lose.
I don't think I will.
I think you will.
I don't think I will.
Okay, we'll see.
What deck did you play?
I had like earth and like water.
Okay, so that demonstrates sufficient ignorance of the subject that the odds that you win are 0. I think what you mean to say is a blue-green, right?
Yeah,
otherwise known as Simic, right?
Right.
But there's just no good Simic deck.
Right.
But,
So
okay.
I mean, your talk of like lacking knowledge. I mean, I'm just gonna say that I'm guided by intuition, right?
Unlimited in power, it would be all powerful. This cause also can't go out of
Why can't it be unlimited in weakness?
existence, because going from existing
One
to
sec.
not existing is a temporal and changeable process.
Oh, he's gone. Oh, wow. Okay. Nice. Yeah, no, Delver's good. Yeah, no, I've played there was like a version of Delver that I played a bit online. Like on a site where you could get cards for free, not on MTGO. And it was like sort of the like blue-red Delver deck that was played by Patrick Chapin in the 2014 World Championship. It was sort of that basic idea. It was so much fun. Delver is just so good. I mean, it was like way better back then when like Dig Through Time, or sorry, Dig Through Time. Yeah, Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise were around. Oh yeah, no, Splinter Twin's great. My brother played Splinter Twin a bunch. Yeah, I okay. Hot take: Tarmo Twin is way better than regular Splinter Twin. Not close. But okay. Anyways, back to the actualization of potential. Yeah, no, I play exclusively modern basically.
And this cause is timeless and changeless. In fact, in being pure actuality, this cause would have no potential for non-existence.
Okay, it would have no potential for non-existence. Well, no! This is show that it had no potential for non-existence prior to changing things. That doesn't show that it can't have potentials after it changes things.
It couldn't fail to exist. So this argument shows there's one unlimited, purely actual cause that exists beyond time and space. That's expected on theism, but very surprising on atheism.
Look, we figure out like some metaphysical assumptions that rest on controversial claims and then just assert them rapid fire, and then we're like, even if this doesn't get us to God has these properties, and so something with these claims is more strongly predicted on theism than on atheism.
Exactly.
Also keep in mind there are only two kinds of entities that exist. Concrete ones, like two toy blocks, and abstract ones, like the number 2 or the shape.
Why did he choose 2 toy blocks? Why not just one? Well, no, I mean, there are like, what about like laws of nature on the Neo-Humean view? Or what about like some like force or essence or basic metaphysical principle? Like the metaphysical principle that establishes modal realism.
Of a cube. But unlike concrete objects, abstract objects like numbers and shapes don't have causal power. So the cause of the universe can't be an abstract object like a number that is causally effete. Instead, it has to be some kind of concrete object. But the cause is also an immaterial concrete object. And the only immaterial causal realities we know of are the intentions of an agent. So the cause
What?
must be personal rather than impersonal.
But we don't know that an agent is impersonal.
I mean, yeah, like somehow when they get to addressing the gap problem, theists become like even more retarded than they were previously when they were like arguing for the first cause, which is like impressive.
I mean, look, it turns out that if it has no potential to be actualized and it's unlimited, it has to be a person, because not being a person would be a limit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pure sophistry. Like it just comes across like a used car salesman. Like it's just so obviously like implausible.
Look, you may be concerned that this car has been used, but I can tell you this car is purely actual. It has no potentials. It can't be any different.
Another clue that points to God is the fact that the universe came into existence in the finite past from a state of nothingness. One reason to think the universe began.
What's the argument for that? That rules out an eternal universe, or the universe including space and time emerging from something more fundamental.
In this manner is because causal chains that terminate in an effect in the present cannot be infinite into the past. This can be seen in a thought experiment called Hilbert's hotel. If the past were infinite, then a builder could construct one room of a hotel every year. Little builders here. Note some of them wear masks. So the builder could construct one room of a hotel every year in the past that also produces an immortal guest.
Oh God, I don't even want to know Trent Horn's politics.
I think he's like somewhat socially conservative on like abortion and transgender issues, but I think he's like not insane. Like he's like pro-vaccine, which is good,
That's good.
and he's like pretty vociferously anti-young Earth creationism, which is nice. That's not political, but that sort of is tangential to politics. And so yeah,
I can so just imagine like hearing from his voice like all the like level 0 trans arguments, like how can a man be a woman?
Ever. And for a man to be a woman, there would have to be actuality. But this is impossible because we're made in the image of God, and God is pure potentiality.
Yeah.
The hotel would have an infinite number of rooms that are fully occupied. But while you can have things like infinite numbers, infinite sets, and imaginary numbers in the abstract realm of mathematics, you can't have these things in the real world. The mathematicians Edward Kasner and James Newman write,
look, you can have them as a figment of your imagination. You can't have any real infinite because it seems weird.
The infinite
right.
certainly does not exist in the same sense that we say there are fish in the sea. Existence in the mathematical sense is wholly different from the existence of objects in the physical world. So, for example, in transfinite arithmetic, subtracting infinite quantities is undefined and prohibited in the same way you can't divide by 0. But at Hilbert's hotel, nothing stops every guess.
But like 0 is the thing, right? So like the fact that you can't do a particular operate, this is a funny image to be passed on. But like the fact that you can't divide by 0 doesn't rule it out. So why does the fact that you can't add or subtract by infinity not rule it out?
Guest from checking out, or every guest in the even numbered rooms from checking out, or every guest after room number 4. But if this happened, then a different amount of guests would remain in the hotel each time, even though an identical amount, or infinite, would have been subtracted each time, which is a mathematical no-no. Guests checking in would also be a problem. Even if the hotel were full, remember, every year a room is built and an immortal guest checks into the room. But even if the hotel were full, you could always accommodate new guests by shifting all the occupants over to the next room. And so this infinitely occupied hotel could accommodate an infinite number of new guests. It would have a sign that says, no vacancy, room's always ready for you. And it gets worse. Back to my cute construction method. Imagine
I mean,
Hilbert's hotel were...
this is just like...
Well, and also he believes in an infinite future, right? So...
Right, I mean, well, that's the thing, right? Is like, I mean, yeah, that's one of the... That's one of the problems, which is just like, it seems like if the impossibility of an actual infinite rules out the possibility of an infinite temporal regress, then the same consideration should equally rule out the possibility of an infinite temporal progress. But, you know, firstly, there's just the problem of like, I mean, it seems totally plausible that the future could be infinitely long. Like it seems totally plausible that there could just be like a causal chain of events that go on forever into the future. But like, I mean, even if he rejected the like that, right? I mean, he already believes that like, you know, for example, when we go to heaven, it seems like the afterlife would have to be eternal. So, and that's just going to have to be a never-ending sequence of heavenly experiences, which seems to be an actual infinite, right? We're talking about an infinite sequence of events. And so it seems like he'd have to come up with some sort of symmetry breaker as to why the impossibility of an actual infinite rules out an infinite past, but does not rule out an infinite future, which of course Christian theism is committed to. But also, I mean, it's just like in Hilbert's hotel, right? Like it's a terrible argument. Like, I mean, I guess like the Grim Reaper style paradoxes like are a little bit better, although they obviously fail because of the unsatisfiable paradiagnosis. But like Hilbert's hotel is particularly bad because there's just clearly no logical contradiction in the sorts of thought experiments that they give, right? Like they'll say, oh, well, you know, the idea is like, oh, well, the hotel would have to be full, but they can still accommodate new guests. How could that be true? But I mean, that's not a contradiction because like if what we mean by full is just that every room is occupied, then that's true. But that there's no reason to think, or he hasn't provided a reason to think that that prohibits us being able to accommodate new guests. We can accommodate new guests because we would shuffle them. But if what we mean by full is can't accommodate new guests, then the room isn't full. So there's no logical impossibility there's no contradiction. So, I mean, the question would just be like, if there's no contradiction that you can point to, I mean, in virtue of what is it impossible? I mean, just because it's like unintuitive, I mean, the fact that it's highly unintuitive to you doesn't indicate that it's impossible, right? It just indicates that it's counterintuitive. But even then, like, I mean, we would expect it to be counterintuitive because our intuitions were formed via our interactions with finite sets. So of course, when we start thinking about the implications of infinite sets, it's going to start like seeming counterintuitive. That doesn't seem like a strong argument against the possibility of an actual infinite, but
right. I mean, and it's sort of like asking, like, okay, how many numbers are there, or like whole real numbers, or like 1, 2, 3. Okay, how many numbers greater than 10 are there? Well, they're infinite in both. They're infinite in both cases.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it also seems like the problematic examples, like the one he gave, involves like shuffling around new guests or shuffling around guests at the hotel in the hotel, right? Now, if we imagine a counterexample, a Hilbert's hotel, where like everyone is locked in their rooms and so people can't move around, then the thought experiment doesn't really seem so absurd. And so that seems to indicate that the counterintuitiveness doesn't come from the infinity. It comes from the fact that the thought experiment involves like a manipulation of infinite elements. And that's relevant because, of course, when we talk about the past being infinite, obviously that doesn't involve us being able to manipulate the infinite past. And so it's just not clear that the source of the counterintuitiveness in the Hilbert's hotel thought experiment actually applies to the infinite past, which is what he's trying to attack, I guess. Or yeah, I guess, yeah.
Worker received a piece of paper from the worker who built the previous room the previous year. If the paper is blank, the worker writes the number of the room he just constructed on it. But if the paper already has a room number on it, then he just passes that piece of paper on to the guy building next year's room. Now here's the question. What is the number? What number is written on the paper given to the worker building this year's room? There has to be some number written on the paper, because if it were blank, then the worker who built last year's room in 2020 would have written that room number on it. But the paper couldn't have been blank last year, because the guy who built the room in 2019 would have written his room number on it, and so on. If the process continues forever into the past...
Yeah, this is just the Grim Reaper, or the Grim Messenger paradox, but like in the context of a hotel.
Yeah, which I mean, it's like what that means, of course, is that it falls to the same argument, which is just that. Right. Yeah, sorry, you got.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why that one's impossible is because it would require there being a single largest negative number. Because it's like, okay, whichever one was the single largest negative number would have to write it down. And obviously you can't have a single largest negative number. But that doesn't rule out infinity. Like infinity's not a number. Like, it's not like they're like is a number negative infinity and that's the biggest number, and beyond that point you can't add anymore. Like, infinity is a concept of never end.
Right.
Some room number on it, but it can't have any particular room number on it. This leads to a simple argument. If an infinite past is possible, then Hilbert's hotel is possible. Hilbert's hotel is not possible. Therefore, an infinite past is not possible. Moreover, if the
argument for premise 2 is that it seems weird, and he made a joke about it based on it saying that it was occupied but had extra rooms.
Right. I mean, to like the general like, I mean, just to like really briefly, I don't like go over the whole like unsatisfiable pair things, but like the general problem with like these sorts of thought experiments is that like they do imply like a logical contradiction, but it's not clear that
Contradiction.
it's not clear that the logical contradiction owes to the fact that we're talking about an infinite set, right? I mean, we could just say it's contradictory because it's a thought experiment, which, like, you know, all the other sort of Benedetto paradoxes, they involve two assumptions. The first assumption being that the set we're talking about is infinite, and the second assumption being that some property P holds at member M, you know, if and only if P holds nowhere before M in the set. And, you know, so just like the way these thought experiments are constructed, they involve like propositions that aren't, that are contradictory, but it's not that the contradictory owes to, so like for example, right, like we could think of a contradictory thought experiment involving anything, right? Like involve, like say, I have a bigger brain than you do, Matthew, and I also don't have a bigger brain than you do, right? That implies a logical contradiction, but it doesn't imply the logical impossibility of brains.
I have a red square circle. It proves that colors are impossible.
Exactly.
If the past is finite, the universe would have begun to exist from a state of nothing. However, many atheists say they'd believe in God if they saw something like an amputated limb healed through prayer, or a limb from nothing. This means they would pick a divine explanation for a limb from nothing rather than no explanation at all. But if our universe came into being from nothing just as inexplicably as a healed, amputated limb, then atheists should be consistent and conclude the universe has a divine cause as well. Finally,
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
'cause the fact that God exists is also something that needs an explanation. Now, you know, it obviously doesn't run afoul of the Kalam, but God existing is also something that's a priori surprising. And so I don't think that that's true. It's also not clear why, like, you know, it seems like on our best theories, time is like a four-dimensional block, where like really what you are is this like four-dimensional object at different points in time, the same way you are at different points in space. And that doesn't leave room for the point of like beginning to exist being coherent.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, like,
And
it's-
also it seems like time can emerge out of something else.
yeah, and I mean, like, these like sorts of analogies like don't work. Like, would it be surprising if, like someone's arm came from nowhere? Yeah, of course, right? But like that would be a spatio-temporal event. That would be an event occurring within space and time. And we have a lot of experience of spatio-temporal events. It seems like spatio-temporal events have causes. And so anytime you give an example of a theoretical spatio-temporal event that might occur, we would assume that there should be a cause for it. But it's not clear why we would think that we should or could extrapolate that intuition to the beginning of time and space itself, right? Because like we don't have experiences of the coming into being of universes from which we can, you know, like the point is just like it seems like our intuitions about causation are formed based on our experiences, and our experiences are of events occurring within space and time. The universe coming into existence wasn't an event that happened within space and time. It was the coming into existence of space and time. And so I just don't think why, like, it's not clear what reason we have to expect our intuitions about these cases to extrapolate to this other case, which is just fundamentally different in like tons of relevant ways.
Yeah, I'd agree. Note we're like 7 minutes into his, or like 10 minutes into his argument.
Finally, there are features of morality that don't make sense if morality isn't ultimately grounded in the perfectly good God of classical physics.
Oh yeah, this is so bad.
Let me review 3 of those features. Number
Okay, I will let you review 3 of those features.
1, human equality. in his debate with Dr. Christopher Kaiser on abortion, Ben said that it is not human beings that have equal rights. Instead, only persons have equal rights. And according to him, personhood does not begin in human beings until several weeks after birth. Ben
Based.
Hey, we said that at the same time.
He's took the Singer pill.
Infanticide would be permissible under this view, but it might be restricted on prudential grounds.
Giga Chad.
Giga Chad only restricts an infanticide on prudential grounds. Virgin restricting of infanticide on moral grounds. Giga Chad only restricts it on prudential grounds.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite, like, conservative, or not conservative, but, like, Christian thing. Like, Dinesh D'Souza did this too, where they'll just be like, literally, they'll just be like, look at these offensive things Peter Singer said. Don't like those, be a theist. Like, what? Like, what's the relevance? Like, clearly,
indeed, the atheist philosopher Peter Singer expressed his support for bad things.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think there's a kind of self-defeat that happens here too, where he says, like, look at all these things, right? You know, human equality, whatever other properties of morality he wants to list off. And he says, like, these things are highly intuitive. Like, it's highly intuitive that we should all accept these things into our, like, normative ethic or whatever. But without God being the source of our normative ethic, it's unclear why our normative ethic would include those things. Well, I mean, almost any, like, the dominant methodology and moral philosophy, right, even among secular moral philosophers, is that we should judge our moral theories against intuitions. And so if you're right that these things are heavily intuitive, then of course they would follow from a secular morality, because that's the methodology of secular morality. And now if we have people like Peter Singer who've argued that these things, when we really reflect on our intuitions, these things don't have a decent grounding, and Singer would provide arguments like marginal cases against human equality and so on, then you would just have to provide a substantive counter-argument against those arguments, but he's not going to do that. Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, and the other thing is, like, human equality is obviously, like, absurd, right? Like, I mean, like, if we could either save the life of a person who's going to die 3 days from now, who is in terrible pain, or the life of, like, a 12-year-old who has, like, 70 years left to live a good life, we would obviously save the 12-year-old. We would save the 12-year-old over, like, 2 people who have, like, 3 days left to live. You know, human equality is like not the case, right? Like, the importance of saving a human's life will depend on the expected value of that human's life.
Oh. Yeah, I missed human equality. I don't know. It's like 2 a.m., so I'm tired. I thought he was talking about, like, and also I think I was confusing this with Singer's debate with D'Souza, where D'Souza's whole argument was like, we need God. D'Souza's whole argument was like, we need God in order to accept in our normative ethic that, like, people are superior to animals, and obviously that's a data point is that we need to accommodate, without, like, giving his response to marginal cases or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Trent Horn is about to make that. So
oh, okay, good. Well, then at least my comments weren't totally irrelevant.
Okay.
They're irrelevant now, but not not like a few seconds from now.
And unequal cognitive abilities causes human equality to, in McMahon's words, rest on distressingly insecure foundations.
Wait. This is like, I hope Ben Watkins presses this point, but it's just hilarious to make the argument we have to have.
This is such a good, like, face to pop.
Yeah, we have to have Well, okay, so I guess maybe his claim could be, because if he wants to have human equality, right? Even the cognitively disabled have equal rights, but animals don't. Um, it seems like he would
What if they
have to.
switched bodies?
Yeah. Well, it seems like if he was going to do that, then he would have to say, okay, well, in virtue of what trait do humans have equal rights, but like not animals? But maybe since he's a theist, he can say, my worldview can accommodate both of those data points without tension, because I can just say that God wanted humans to be superior to animals in virtue of no other trait, just the fact that God said it. But then that's going to carry its own problems, because that seems heavily counterintuitive, that we should just accept that humans are superior to animals because God said so, even if we can't come up with some trait which seems morally relevant on our own moral intuitions. Yeah.
Right. And it also gets you into this weird problem, which is like, okay, let's imagine that God just declared that he does not care about people from the Philippines. Like
Right.
that their people from the Philippines are identical to people not from the Philippines in all respects, except God just does not care about them. Would that mean that they objectively don't matter? Well, no, of course not. It seems like whether they matter depends on facts about them rather than facts about God's whims.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like in order to avoid the counterintuitive implications that come with, the tension between believing in human equality and also believing in human superiority over animals, it seems like he's going to try to resolve that by just appealing to some sort of like divine command theory, so that, he says, well, look, my theory resolves this problematic tension. But then his solution carries with it even more intuitively problematic implications, which is like, the Euthyphro's dilemma, reductios, and so on. It seems absurd to say that something's okay.
Yeah, let's play him talking about the animal stuff, and then we can respond, because I think that there's a knockdown argument against it.
Human nature explains equal moral worth, however. That leads to another question. Why does having a certain kind of DNA make us more valuable than other animals? That leads to moral feature number 2, human exceptionalism. In his debate with Dr. Kaiser, Ben expressed concerns about speciesism, which is supposed to be an evil like racism. Under this view, saying one species is more valuable than another in virtue of DNA would be as bigoted as saying one race of humans is more valuable than another race of humans because of their DNA. But nearly everyone agrees it would be moral to feed a pig to your starving child and monstrous to do the opposite. Atheism leads to the...
Wait, I feel like Singer would accept that, right?
Yeah, because it's not true in virtue of your DNA. Like, if there was a person
like an alien. Yeah, imagine like the Vulcans from like Star Trek. Would it be okay to like kill Spock to feed a starving person? Like, that's less clear, right? Even though his DNA equally isn't human as the pigs, right? So that seems to suggest that it's not the DNA that's relevant. It's like he's appealing to our intuitions in the pig case.
Right.
But I think our intuitions in the pig case owe to the fact that the pig is like severely limited in its cognitive abilities, so on, compared to a human. That intuition doesn't owe to the fact that they have different DNA, because we could imagine highly intelligent humanoid-like creatures without human DNA where we wouldn't have those same intuitions.
Yeah, what if there was a being that lacked human DNA, but that looked like a human, talked like a human,
in every
human? This also can't account for the data that it would be good to feed your child to the utility monster, but monstrous to feed the utility monster to your child.
Conclusion that species membership is morally irrelevant. But theism can explain why only human animals have intrinsic value, as it has been said.
This is a point that I've made before, but it feels like good philosophy is reductionist, and philosophy of religion is unreductionist.
Yeah.
Rather than providing a simple reductionist account of reality, it'll make things complicated, higher level, involving acts and potentialities. And it does this with ethics too. So good ethics around animals tries to parse out why animals matter and why humans matter and what the difference is, etc. Well, what Trent is doing is he's just trying to figure out a sort of higher order conception about like, just to like, he's just like, here's this false ethical view that can't withstand scrutiny. Well, if we can use God to shoehorn it in, then it works. Well, okay, right. But yeah.
Said before, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Finally, there's number 3.
Okay. But in terms of the animal's point, so the knockdown objection is, like if we say that they are gain extra worth in virtue of something like a soul, well, then the question is, are souls causally inert or not? If souls are causally inert, then if there were humans without souls who are like humans in all other respects. But if God just made people from Laos just not have souls, but be like humans in every other respect, be fully conscious, etc. I don't know why I'm choosing like small countries in Asia to like pick on for being devoid of souls.
It seems like a weird Freudian hang-up you have.
Okay. I mean, the point is just to make it awkward for the theists to be like, yes, if Laotians did not have souls, I wouldn't care about that. But so if
in the ideal scenario, you're both in a room with like someone from that country.
Right, but so if it's causally inert, then if people from, okay, we'll choose a different country. If people from
pick a
Canada,
European country. I'm starting to get weird vibes from you.
Well, I just said Canada, okay?
Listen, okay, we're supposed to be doing this is supposed to be philosophy time, not Matthew vent your racial hang-ups time.
Okay, so Norway, okay? So if people from Norway
with the highest immigrant population of any country in Scandinavia. No, I'm just kidding. I don't actually know that.
Okay. Okay, so Norway, if people from Norway, Norwegians as they're sometimes called, if they were made without souls, but like the rest of people in all other respects, would they like not possess mortal worth, even though they're like functionally identical, just because they don't have God's like invisible magic stamp of approval? But if the thing about souls that confers mortal worth is some fact about the souls, well then the question is, so if you say like, well, souls grant us intelligence, well then that just runs into the argument for marginal cases. So like, what about humans who don't, for whom souls don't, who are like very unintelligent despite having souls?
Human evils. By human evils, I mean those acts which aren't just bad like a drought. I'm talking about evils that only humans can commit. A tiger might be a cunning killer, but only
a shark may forcefully copulate with another shark. Wait, Ethan, you should do your Craig impression for the world to hear.
Oh God, I can't do it. I can't.
No, you must do it.
No, I need to. If I'm gonna do my Craig impression, I need to watch Craig for at least like 10 minutes beforehand, so that I like.
Look, well, no, if it doesn't work, we can get the like behind the scenes of the Craig impression fail.
Listen, okay, you need to warn me before these things.
Look, the people want to hear it. They've spoken. They want to hear.
Right.
Want to hear the Craig impression.
Oh, look, my internet's cutting out. I can't hear your question.
No, well, a shark may forcefully copulate with another.
William Lane Craig needs to like get the memo and start appealing to ducks. A much better example, more apt.
Humans can be cruel killers who disregard a moral law they ought to follow. Once again,
humans can be very bad. Therefore, moral law must be written with us in mind. Well, no, I mean like we're like really smart. So I'm just speaking for myself here. But, and so as a result, we have the ability to understand morality in a way that other animals do not. If like a giraffe was very intelligent and like sadistically stomped someone to death while understanding the full ramifications of their action. We wouldn't say, well, they're a giraffe, so fuck it. We would say they're doing something morally wrong. We just happen to be the only types of beings who have that deep of an understanding of morality.
If humans are just another species who act in accord with physical laws, then there is no reason to assume they have moral responsibility, including the responsibility to not commit certain intrinsic evils that are always wrong, no matter what kind of good they might accomplish.
What? Well, there are, like, if you're a deontologist, then there is. I mean, you know, deontology is absurd, so like I would agree with that statement to some degree, but like there are lots of deontologists around. And also, I mean, I reject the notion of ultimate moral responsibility, as do you as well. I think, right? You agree with the.
Do I agree with what?
Realism cannot explain why
You don't believe in like ultimate moral responsibility.
I'm not even sure what that means. No, I mean, I'm a hard determinist.
Yeah, I am as well.
there are some things we must never do, such as actively killing infants who have mild disabilities, even if such an act produced net utility.
Okay, what if actively killing infants who had mild disabilities prevented infinite children from being brutally tortured and raped to death? Should we do that?
Wait, what if? Oh wait, how is he appealing to intuition here? Because we could just say, all right, what if God said we should kill, we should kill infants with disabilities?
We should kill infants with disabilities and ones that don't have disabilities with a shovel. We should just go bam and just hit the infants to death with a shovel.
Well, I another funny thing about all the anti-utilitarian reductios is they always derive their force from like describing the negative thing happening super vividly, like killing infants with disabilities, and then when like talking about the positives, they're like, oh, net utility, like super like abstract terms that are hard to connect with emotionally.
Yeah. Imagine you brutally torture someone, but the benefits of it outweigh the costs. Can you do that?
Like, I imagine if we start posing thought experiments where we more vividly, like, oh, what if we had to kill infants with disabilities, but each infant killed saved 3 infants without disability? Or like, I don't know, like if we started like explaining the benefits of any anti-utilitarian reductio more in depth, it wouldn't it wouldn't completely take away from the counterintuitiveness. We would have to do more work to like completely take away the force, but like, obviously it would take away some of the force, right? Because just saying, oh, this horrible thing that I'm going to describe in detail, it produces net positive utility. It's like, okay, come on, like you're not even describing it fairly.
We are morally responsible for our actions if we do perform these evil acts. However, if God created human beings to freely obey moral laws that reflect our equal intrinsic value, then this makes sense of our moral experience. And God would just be the ultimate standard of goodness, and morality would reflect his perfect nature.
But that runs into Euthyphro's dilemma. So is it because God said so, or because it corresponds with God's character, or does it correspond with God's character because it's good? If the former is true, then if God's character were pro infant torture, then infant torture would be objectively good. If the latter is true, right, then it's not bad from God.
Atheistic philosopher Robin Lepoydevan puts it this way.
How much longer is left in this?
We're almost
okay,
done.
Good. It's like 3 a.m. I'm like extremely tired. But if we're almost done, I can, yeah.
Like humans, God is a source of moral value. That is, God's goodness in part consists of the fact that he is the basis of ethics. Since it is not trivial that God plays such a role, it cannot be trivial that
Cameron's just taking this all in.
Wow, just so many high-level ideas.
His listeners are eating this stuff up.
God is good. In fact,
more evidence for God? Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Towards a moral obligation. Robin Lepoydevan, who wrote a great atheist introduction to philosophy of religion. Finally, badness or evil are not positive things. They are privations of the good a thing ought to have.
Yeah, when I was like being like, you know, when you like hear stories about like a person being brutally tortured, what do you think is really, wow, that wasn't a good thing? Well, no, it's not just a privation of good. It's actively bad.
But if the cause of the universe has no potential and is pure actuality, then it must be good by definition. That's because it could not lack anything, and so it couldn't be bad in any sense of that word. In fact, when all of these arguments are seen as a whole,
Well, wait, no. So this is equivocating on good. Like a perfect triangle is like perfect at being a triangle in that sense. But that doesn't make it morally good. Like a perfect date rape drug is effective at being a date rape drug, but that doesn't make it morally good. A perfect club used to hit babies with is is better if it's very effective at hitting babies. But that does not make it morally good. To give one more example,
Just
there's
revving up the example.
there like on SNL there was like an evil invention competition, and so the first one was like a death ray or something, and the second one was a child molesting robot.
So true.
But a perfect child molesting a robot is not morally perfect.
They form a strong case that there is a changeless, timeless, immaterial, infinite, necessarily existing, all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good cause of the universe. Or
That skit was very funny.
Yeah.
what most people refer to as God. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does God exist? Yes! Exclamation. Both monitors. By the way, comma, God exists.
True.
All right. Well, Mr. Ethan, you seem ready to hit the hay. You seem like you're about to keel over and die. So
yeah, I'm super tired.
You seem like you have the potential to go to sleep soon that will become actual very soon.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, so
I
do
hope
you
so.
feel like was this enough to convert you to Christianity?
Yeah. It was. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was kind of like on the fence. I mean, I have a lot of objections, like problem of evil, problem of defined hiddenness, all seemed like pretty compelling. But then I started thinking about like, yeah, it really does seem like there has to be pure actuality in order for things to exist. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna start my Bible studies tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the like act potential jargon is just so confused that it feels like you can just say anything and like declare that like it follows from being purely actual.
Well, no, it follows from P4 of the argument.
Right, like you could be like, I don't know. Of course, the best wife has to be purely actual because otherwise she would have the potential to be a better wife. I mean, which means that she would have to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial, as we saw. I don't know. It's just bizarre, but yeah.
All right. Well,
don't trust a huckster with acts and potentiality. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Peace.
Thanks for the stream. It was fun. Peace.